ready to start with very special discussion that is going to step into the upcoming conference Bridge 2021 and engage us to think about the challenges and benefits of the new generation project management. That can be simply defined by 3 words: projectized, digitized, and connected. So I'm happy to introduce the panel discussion speakers online and here on site. Really hybrid discussion for the first time. And please welcome Dr. Mazin Gadir, who is joining us virtually. Hello, Mazin, can you hear us? Mazin is joining us.
Yes,
virtually.
hi, I can hear you.
Perfect, great to hear you. Mazin is joining us from beautiful Dubai. Dr. Mazin is a director of partnerships, bid management, and client relationships at IQVIA, payer provider government management consultancy. He's also an external advisor at the Executive Office of Organizational Transformation, Dubai Health Authority, with responsibility for health strategy development, implementation, execution, and transformation, as well as Director of Outreach in PMI UAE chapter. It's so good to have you here, Dr. Mazin. Please stay with us in the whole discussion. Also, virtually, we have dear Eva. She is going to stay and reflect on questions and comments. And here in the studio, I am happy to introduce, I could say, a project management education representatives, Mrs. Birutė Miškinienė, PhD, Managing Director at Vilnius University Business School. Birutė has experience leading more than 10 years EU Leonardo da Vinci program, which is national agency implementing international projects in Lithuania. In addition to that, Birutė is involved as board member, consultant in several EU projects, as well as initiator of number of women entrepreneurship projects and events. It's so good to have you here, Birutė.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. Also, it's a great pleasure to welcome our friends and hosts. So first of all, Danutė Ivanauskaitė-Levišauskienė, Head of Portfolio and Project Management at SEB Baltic and SEB Baltic Product Development and Technology Management member. Danutė is an experienced professional in project, program, and portfolio management in professional services, IT, and financial industry. Danutė, thanks for joining us as well and supporting us, supporting this learning, technology, and innovation-driven discussion, I believe.
Pleasure. Hello to everyone.
And last but not least, please welcome our panel discussion moderator, SEB Bank Sustainability Officer, Audrius Rutkauskas. Audrius' background and experience is very diverse, from managing projects and operations in one of the largest logistic companies in the world, being responsible for client success at a London-based startup, to more recently managing SEB Innovation Center, and now being responsible for sustainability agenda in SEB Lithuania. Audrius, first of all, thanks for including us to our sustainability agenda, and thanks for taking this important role. And please open this hybrid discussion.
So look, everyone, welcome, and thanks for joining in and listening in. And I was very impressed when I looked at who actually joined us. I saw people from all across the world: Germany, Nigeria, Ghana, Poland, Lithuania, France, etc. So it's such a nice feeling to have those people around us. And we also, for that, we have a very diverse panel as well with increasing background, covering many different topics from different countries and even the hybrid model, so everyone is included. And I think this very well reflects this connected part of our topic, which today we're going to discuss more about, this productized, digitized, and connected. And I'll truly try to do my utmost best to try to get all these, nuggets of wisdom from all of you guys and girls to share with our lovely audience today. And to kick it off, obviously, just a short reminder, technically, you once in a while might see this red dot on polls. So I please do encourage you, once you see that, to start answering those questions. We really want to involve you as well in our discussion. And also, do not forget questions. I'll try to ping them and try to insert them into this discussion. But to kick it off and to make this a bit more personalized, I would like each of you to share one sentence. Why do you love project management so much? And what is this exciting bit for you whenever people say project management? So maybe Danutė, we'll kick it off from you.
Yeah, so great. So first of all, for me, project management is not a skill. For me, it's a profession. So I'm working as project manager for more than 15 years. Actually, I have already stopped counting, and I'm still project program manager. And what I really like about it, because you're never bored of it. You can't be bored about this job because it always taking a new idea, exploring new idea, always having a new team that you need to lead and to inspire and to get the goal done. So it just can't be boring. It just keeps you tuned. So I think this is what I love about it.
Birutė?
Okay, for me, project management, I would say that that's the daily routine. And especially when you are a manager, I would put there the sign of equality between the project management and general management.
Very good. Eva, maybe your short comment on this?
Well, I'm project management passionate. For almost 20 years, I work in project management in many different roles. But what I most love about it is that from the chaos that is at the very, very beginning, when you put a lot of effort, a lot of teamwork, when you struggle with deadline, then you achieve goals and you provide value. And that is something I love.
Very good. Excellent answer. And Dr. Mazin?
So I think what I wanted to focus on, maybe the value driven and value based approach, which is it's become the trend of the new project management economy, as was mentioned by Edita. So being value driven, outcome driven, and it has become the most important aspect of how specifically in the international market across the different other regions like the Middle East and North Africa.
Very good. And our host did it.
Yeah, I could just note on everything what's been already said. And probably personally, I feel that every project to me is like learning curve. And I feel that I am learning new language every time, because in every new project, you learn something. And most importantly, you need to find this right way of working, because each project is different and people are different.
Very good. And I think I would like to really kick off this in a more kind of the question which might be on a lot of people's heads, right? So obviously, in the past couple of years, a lot of things changed. And what our usually status quo of project management for especially larger organizations, whenever you could go and meet people and influence stakeholders, right, and get the answer there and there, we moved more to this virtual world. So my question for you is, what type of benefits do you see in this digital or remote first environment versus these challenges in this, I would say, in this quite difficult time, right? Whenever we encountered pandemic, etc. So I don't know who wants to kick it off, but maybe let's start from Dr. Mazin. If you could shed some light about this digital versus physical environments in project management, key benefits and key challenges for you.
So I think the key benefits or some of the disruption that has happened with a beneficial and a valuable outcome is the fact that the customers and your stakeholders need to be connected. So obviously the importance of having physical connection, the human to human interaction is always going to be valuable. And the pandemic times has showed us that you can run a PMO on a digital and a virtual platform. But again, when it comes to the people side of running your projects and handling conflicts and negotiating resolutions and whatnot, there is nothing much more valuable than the physical interaction. However, so the beauty of the pandemic, or if I may say so, is that the digital enablers, the digital tools that we have now has extended our capabilities to run PMOs with a more agile fashion. But it has highlighted the importance of physical connection, specifically as you deal with your daily activities. Yes, you can't do Miro to do a brainstorming session. However, you use Miro or you use some of those beautiful tools that are out there, Slido, to get interaction over virtual tools. But you still have to have those physical meetings and interaction to actually get the PMO running, to achieve stakeholder engagement, to look at milestones, to look at actually resolution of any challenges and obstacles, managing your risk register. I mean, again, these are important aspects that you can see when you look at physical PMO, where you have that more stakeholder, more people engagement capabilities. But again, the benefits of digital, obviously your flexibility to reach a wider angle of stakeholders, using tools to document, easier tools and a much more innovative tools that you can communicate information. So no longer do you have to wait for example, physical meetings to take place. You can do still with virtual meetings and then spice it up with physical interactions. But I think the pros and cons, maybe there are areas that physical PMOs would be playing a huge part, specifically when you do interactions, negotiating milestones, cost and time constraints and whatnot. But the virtual part could enable you better your communication, your change management aspects as your PMO run, and use maybe the analytics tool to look at a wider specs of how you run your projects. I don't know if that answered your some of that question.
No, it's a great thoughts and great ideas. And Eva, but what about you? What do you think are these practical, really kind of challenges, and how do you come to solve them?
Well, I think that most of us noticed that when we went digital, most of the meetings started to become shorter. I used to spend all my days on meetings, my corporate life, going from one meeting to another, and there are so many of them. And then suddenly, less meetings, shorter meetings, but on the other hand, the work is still going. The progress is being achieved. So that is something wow for me. Also, I've noticed that people were more focused on what they do. They could be, more focused, staying at home, doing their job, and, to complete their work, their task quicker. But on the other hand, of course, what Dr. Mazin has already just said, there is a huge problem with group integration, with informal meetings, informal discussions, relations, which are so important in project management, in project team. It is much more difficult to communicate in such an informal way with another team member when you do that and you see each other on the screen. When you compare that, when you go to the office kitchen and have coffee together. There is no space to, talk about half private things, which are so crucial and so important to raise new ideas or to solve conflicts. We've become more formal when we communicate using digital tools. So that is the area that I think is most challenging for us, and that there is such a lack of integration within the group. There is no such a team effect that we used to have before. It's more difficult to solve some misunderstandings when we are remote.
Yeah, very much agree. And that then it nicely flows, probably maybe a question to Danutė, more around. So how do you keep stakeholders engaged then, right, in this environment of remote? As human beings are emotional and we want those relationships, and remote and virtual doesn't necessarily help us to do that. So any tips you can share on obviously you're looking after a large portfolio type of projects in the complex matrix organization. So any tips for the audiences? I believe they need some practical also tips around. So what do they do?
Well, actually, first of all, coming back to the previous question, I personally, whatever is related to the professional, activities of the project manager, in this pandemic mode, I see more advantages, actually. I have never felt so much connected and having such access worldwide, because now there is no difference like today, whether you're sitting in Vilnius, whether you're sitting in Dubai or any other country. Now it's our new normal. We have never been so connected, so being so close to each other, even if we're distant. So for me, it's doesn't matter actually for the work that we are doing, because always we have been dealing with large projects. What does it mean large? It's never one country involved, never. That was our new normal always. So the way how we interact with the stakeholders, it has not changed. So we just need to talk to people. It does not matter what kind of tools you're using. So this is what keeps us informed, involved in the best possible way. So it's not through what we're saying, it's rather what we're saying to people and how we are prepared. But of course, at the same time, so we are humans, right? We have understood it very well during pandemic. So what we mean is this personal touch in order to meet somebody and to talk. But I would say it's more trending that whenever we meet, we don't longer talk about job. So it's only to socialize. And for the work matters, we have built our digital skills that well that international projects now are being run very well. And when we thought that, we can do workshop only physically, and we have those hybrid meetings where part of the audience is remote, part is physical. So no, we can admit that it was semi-efficient. So we understand that present it's only physical, and those who are remote, they are more listeners. But this skill we have developed perfectly actually now. So I see rather more advantages out of it. We should not forget that we are human. We need to talk, to drink coffee together when we can. But as long as it is related to work, so I think we are in the perfect shape actually to collaborate and to involve everyone who is needed.
Well, we can see we have a very optimistic panel, which is great. A lot of positive things out of this situation of pandemic and being really connected digitally online. And I don't know, Edita, do you also want to kind of add on that in terms of some challenges or some even benefits you see? And I also see a question which you maybe can touch from the audience is really about when we become more connected, communication channels are also increasing, right? There are multiple of these communication channels, how not to get lost in that. So maybe you can touch on that as well.
Great question. Yeah, I am personally also a believer of opportunities, that in every difficult situation, you need to find those opportunities. Of course, multiple channels usually doesn't help. So probably my tip and what I use from practical perspective, try to keep everything in one place. Choose one tool which is useful for your team, and communicate there. So probably this is what helps me a lot in every project. And I couldn't say that I have single tool I am using every time. As I mentioned, projects are different and you need to negotiate with your team what tools they love, and you need to listen what is already been said. So I think you can reduce communication channels by communicating with your team what are the ground rules and what tools you are going to use.
Great answer. And maybe a question now to Birutė, from your standpoint, right? So we talked about this change, digital, and so we all probably agree that's not going to go anywhere, right? So how can, for example, education provide the needed tools and knowledge in this digital project management versus kind of, let's call it, pre-digital project management? So any tips or any thoughts you can share on that education aspect of?
Of course, and especially being the educational institution ourselves, the business school. And I would like to say that probably we experienced also very much the value of pandemic by setting their goals for ourselves for 2020. It was said that we would like to have free online courses to be introduced, and really what happened. So we moved online fully, 100%. And of course, we were not ready. And from the very beginning, it was a very big stress. It was very stressful for everyone, not only for students, but also for professors. There's so many new tools and Teams and Zooms and other platforms. But I think that we managed to do this in a very good shape, and we learned so quickly because it was no time for learning. And I see a very good benefit, and I'm very happy that we have already the online courses. And there is another one possibility which was also explored, I would say, very successfully. The business schools, universities, and over the world, they put a lot of a very good content on online. The Coursera, we got the access to Coursera courses. So really, it was a very good learning opportunities to everyone, for myself as well. I learned a lot of courses provided by Kellogg, Harvard, and Stanford, and so that it was the very good benefits. But I would agree what Danutė was saying. Of course, everyone we are used to have the physical contacts, and emotionally, of course, we are the social humans, and the communication is very important. Of course, there are quite a number of positive things, but there are negative things as well. But we are trying to see not the beauty of pandemic, as our colleagues said, but I think the value of pandemic.
Yeah. And I think another important, and thanks a lot for comments, audience, and keep them coming and questions. And before even next question, maybe we can launch the first poll so we can ask a question directly to the audience. And as one part of it, Dr. Jonathan, when we talked about stakeholders, he said stakeholders, and his tip to achieve the intended outcome is that stakeholders should be consistently briefed at every stage of the project, especially in this type of remote environment, right? And this is how we maybe can also have this relationship of value relationship, that everyone knows exactly what is happening, as these coffee or water cooler conversations are not really happening. So maybe we sometimes forget. And my second question actually is going now towards more on the question of this digitization, right? And we all know that in this day and age, innovation for any company is needed so much, right? Companies only can progress if they are innovative. And there's a couple of forces, such as mentioned, sustainability, and also another one is innovation. But in terms of talking about innovation, some say that the process of innovation does require chaos, right? That the creativity behind innovation is what really drives and pushes innovation. And actually that projectizing and structurizing innovation might be counterproductive. So I wanted to ask your experience, and I don't know who wants to start. Maybe we'll start with Dr. Mazin at this time. About, do you agree with this, that there might be some counterproductivity around projectizing and structurizing innovation process? Or do you think there's some misconception about what project management really is and what the benefits it can bring to innovation process?
Oh, that's a very philosophical and a great question. But
Indeed it is.
But I think, look, I mean, by nature of humans, we are built in a complex manner. And humans and people relationships are actually somewhat a byproduct of a complex system. So structure is needed. It's a hybrid model, like what you said earlier, right? Where you think about structure, you need some sort of a structure to achieve milestones. And you might need a bit of chaos to kind of bring in innovation, because innovation is tied in with freedom of thinking, freedom of brainstorming, freedom of, and those are the new concepts that are coming out of design thinking, right? So now, no longer would you want to say project management office. Maybe then the term project management office needs to be disrupted. Maybe we need to call it the disruption office, where there is an element of structure, agility, a bit of stimulated chaos, because you need that innovation. And again, the concepts of that are coming towards our radar now because of the pandemic is immediately try and test. So the minimum viable products, the minimum viable processes, the minimum viable projects, because no longer do we have time to put a proof of concept, do a pilot, do the design, validate, test, and then implement, because again, this might be too long, specifically in the post-pandemic world. So I guess the answer is, and maybe that's a complex answer, what I think there is a structure requirement and a bit of agility with chaos. And that's the marriage between waterfall and agile frameworks. I would think that's why we can never do without waterfall, which is a more structured manner, and we can never do without agile, because you still need those sprints. You need, and COVID-19 would not have been fixed if it was completely structured. There had to be some sort of chaos to actually come to the vaccine. And that's why PMOs now need to actually maybe operate in a manner that allows a bit of innovation, design thinking, minimum viable products, and minimum viable processes, and minimum viable projects that allows you to, or allows those entities to embed their value-driven outcome into the organizations. Organizations have become, across different industries, very cost conscious, or very efficient and effective conscious. So they're always going to talk about how do they get to from A to Z in the shortest manner and the quickest way to achieve the highest amount of outcome, because the next pandemic might not give you few months to prepare for it. So you need to think immediately. So it's a marriage. And again, the balance depends on the industry. I work in healthcare. In healthcare, they've literally, PMOs had to literally jump in and work with the clinical workforce and bring in the digitization in a way that was never thought of, where they stop piloting, stop testing, and immediately implement from idea to implementation. And again, this is what I think the marriage should happen between structure and chaos.
Very good. Thanks, Mazin. And as you mentioned about different industries, so maybe I want to ask Danutė, as we are working in a regulated environment full of rules, etc. So how do you think this projectization on, and also Mazin very correctly said about this minimal viable products, etc. How does that work, and what are your thoughts in this regulated industry? Should we projectize innovation more, less? What's your thought?
So first of all, I think there is an assumption that whenever the word chaos came, so project managers should be scared, right? So, and maybe some, they really do. I'm actually about the balance, first of all, because I think we need different skills in different moments, in different phases. And I would say whenever we're talking about ideation phase, and that's why we have, I would say, project managers as listeners, but not as facilitators, because this is where we need to ideate, we need to flow. But there is always the point when we need to get things done. There is a very fair expectation from everyone, including management, that no, it needs to be done. Yeah. So at some point of time, we're really then going to a more structured way in terms of how to do it, because endless ideation, it might also create another chaos, and it can create another actually frustration. And actually, while talking about current project management, it's not longer we're trying to build project scope as large as possible. If somebody would ask whether we need to have a large project, I would say, if possible, to avoid it, let's avoid it. So the key goal that our project managers have is to split in pieces, to split into pieces as reasonable as possible in order to get it going through. So now it's not building the big scope, rather trying to chunk it. So it's totally different direction that we had many years ago. And also, I would say project management, it does not replace the process which are inside organization. And yes, there are industries which are highly regulated, and we just need to accept it. So project management process, they are not replacing the level of bureaucracy or the level of risk mitigants that need to be for that specific industry. But where experienced project managers can help is to navigate through this process in the most efficient manner. So to drive through the change which is needed in order to be compliant, in order to have it on the proper quality, aligned with the stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, in order to get it done in the best and most efficient way. So this is how I see. So in regulated environments, let's admit it is a challenge, but we also understand what kind of responsibility we bear in front of society, in front of our client employees. So that's very natural. So every change we do in digital environment related to the data is the biggest asset all over the world. So we should, protect it in the best possible way. And at the same time to drive the change to the extent we can and the fastest we can.
Good. Edita, what's your take on chaos versus projects? Are they mutually exclusive, or can they live together and coexist very nicely?
I think, of course, that in nowadays changing environment, project managers needs to, level up their skills and be ready for anything happens, as Danutė already mentioned. So I believe project manager's role should be that in any chaotic situation, as chaotic it is as possible, they need to have a plan. What's next, and how we can adjust. So I personally believe that project managers can help to lead the team to the end result, but they always need to stay on top on what is happening and find the right solution.
Okay, Birutė, what's your idea on this?
I was just listening very carefully, and I was trying to remember the design of our international project management program. And I'm getting a lot of good insights, and I think that I fully agree what was just said previously.
Very good.
Yeah, that's a very diverse and explicit situation the project manager is.
And I think just to reflect on that, nowadays project managers also need to, as I said, go to this more pragmatic level, and they need to be skilled enough, in which project stage, what exact method they need to use. Is it agile? Is it waterfall? What's next, right? So it requires learning and skills.
Yeah, but I think that it should be the set of soft skills and technical skills as well. That's the combination,
Yeah. And Eva, maybe from your standpoint, right? Any tips how project managers could embrace chaos and could really embrace this innovation area as such? So what's your experience and what's your tips on that?
Okay, just one maybe comment that, of course, I agree that project processes, procedures, regulations are necessary because they help to structurize the chaos. They help to structurize how we should proceed with the projects. But I have seen many projects that were killed by processes, by those standards. All the innovation was completely zero after that. Chaos is important for the creativity, but actually I would say not even chaos, but having fun. When you go into the research, when people are most creative is when they have fun, when they are passionate about something. One more thing about it is to give people space to make them feel safe in the project environment. There was a large research made by Google. There was such a project, Aristoteles, that is nicely described by Charles Duhigg in the book Smarter, Faster, Better. They searched for the recipe for the perfect project team, the most effective project team. The project, they searched more than 170 project teams. There was no pattern. But what they discovered is that the most effective teams and then projects are when people have space to freely communicate, when every project team member has space to share ideas, but also to share fears, problems. There is no domination of one or two or three project team members. Everybody has space, and those people are feeling free, they're feeling open to talk about nice things and about problems. And what I think is, even when you structurize projects, regulations, environment, and so on, you must leave a space for people having fun, for feeling good, for empowering them, so they really feel that they can have impact, they can contribute to the value, to the project goals. So that is some kind of a balance, again, between structurizing and flexible, I will not say chaotic, but flexible style of project management.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. And I think, as Dr. Mazin said, this was a very philosophical question. Let's move to a very practical one. And that practical question mostly relies about obviously adapting to this new way of working, right? And adapting to this new way of organizing and managing projects. And my question to you is more around what, some people adjusted to this better. Some people adjusted to this. It took them a longer time. But my question is more around what practical tools really help each and every one of you, where, you used it and you say, this is such a great tool, which helps me to manage these projects much better. So I don't know, maybe Edita, from your side, was there any such tool? Maybe there's a collection of tools now, and maybe it's a secret of yours, competitive advantage, but maybe you can share to the audience who listens in what those practical tools are.
Well, if you ask me in personal, I love Microsoft Teams. only because I keep everything there, right? But really, it's not a promotion. I think every virtual tool is as useful as your team agree to use it, and if you don't use it, if you lose it, that's a language, right? So every tool, if you learn about the features they have, and if you think how it can help you in practical way, could be useful. But I think my personal advice, first experiment, identify benefits and challenges, and then decide together with the team.
Very good. Dr. Mazin?
I think the secret sauce is in the simplicity. And that's what, COVID-19 has showed us, right? Getting to the plan depends on what you like to use and what is simple to use. I like, for example, Trello. I've learned Trello over the pandemic because we were running some projects in the Project Management Institute UAE chapter, and one of the volunteers taught me how to use Trello to manage my projects across that. And Trello was a beautiful tool, simple, easy. So again, it's as Edita said, I'm not come on, they don't pay me, I don't get a commission on that, but
they should.
The beauty of any tool, it's simplicity. We know the project management principles. We need to just use the simplest tools, the most interactive and collaborative tool that could actually fit your day-to-day activity. Because at the end of the day, the two questions that you need to ask, how are you going to tackle the challenge in front of you, and what value are you providing to your stakeholders and to your end users or clients?
Very good. Eva?
Well, I don't have one favorite tool that I'm using. Some of my clients are using MS Teams, some they're using Zoom, some are using Google Meets, and I just need to adopt when I have, for example, training or a project for them. So either I can make it on Teams or on Zoom. But there is, I think, all of these tools are really nice and friendly. I cannot say which one I like most. For sure, the problem is when I cannot choose and I cannot decide on one tool. So I have some data on MS Teams, some on Google, and some on other, different tools. But I would really love to have one tool and use only one tool. Just for documents edition, very often I work with my colleagues from different places on common documents. So what I really like is Google Docs, and when we can, all of us edit one Word document or Excel file. So that is something, but I cannot say that, I'm really satisfied about those tools because just there are too many of them.
Yeah. Danutė, what about you?
Actually, I would like to put the highlight a bit on a different angle because sometimes we cannot even select the tool because whatever is according to company policy, this is what we need to use, right?
Yeah.
We should accept it. Again, I would say that it's a matter how we say and what we say. And let's think, a couple of years ago, what kind of, how we felt whenever putting cameras on and how unnatural it was, right? So to put camera on during video, it's like, I don't know how about you, but for women, it's like a disaster. Nevertheless, whenever you sit in the meeting, you look the same, but you don't have the feeling, that you always look into yourself. Now, I think it's new normal. I mean, nobody feels already we're meeting, switching camera, and this is how we communicate. And actually, whenever talking to my employee that I have never seen for a year in person because it's just in another country. And she said, we're having mid-year conversation saying, this is my normal. I mean, she said, I would not know what to say to you if we would see physically. So it's another trend, that. So where I would like to put a highlight is also not also to go too far in this direction as well. Now we try to force people to put cameras on, and then we try to behave, try to look. But I think it's very much okay when you have your headsets and you go out into the forest. You have your headset and you're having your lunch. Just, of course, it should be agreed, because you should feel free. You should feel comfortable, because this is what you do when you are having lunch together or drinking coffee together. But while we're putting camera on, we think that we need to behave, so just to stand still. So we have also experienced this, how much you can concentrate on the conversation and listening to people when you are also not seeing. Now we can really feel what does it mean flexible working hours, when you can have meeting, having walk in the forest, going, but you are still with the person. You feel that you are connected, even if you don't see it. So I think that's, whenever recalling a couple of years ago, it's totally different, way of communicating and being connected.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I didn't really think about that as well, right? So there is a change. The change has done, and it's just a testament how human beings are such good at adapting to new environments, right? But Dr. Birutė, your last take on tools. So any nirvana type of tools you found out where you now loving it to use it?
I don't think that I will say something very differently, In our case, there are Teams 100%, like a corporate tool. And seems to be that every one of us, we are quite feel okay. And I don't think that we have been just even thinking about those things you have been mentioning. It is just happen naturally.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see the person somewhere, not in the office. So that's the case.
Very good.
Teams.
Excellent. So look, we only have like 5 minutes left, right? So I would like to close this with last type of question to all of you. And this is a question, maybe let's start with Eva. And the question is can you just one tip which we would like to leave the audience with from your experience? What really helped you in your life, in your career as project management? One tip. I know it's a tough one, but
whoa, it's really difficult. But I think that what is the most crucial to project management success is the human relations and how you work with people. How you understand what your project team members are capable of, where is their talent, where can you find when they can explore their potential, and where are the fields that they hate, they will do that, but they will just unmotivate them. And for me, that is something really understand, to be empathetic, to understand people in my team, to make team the most interdisciplinary, so that we can share, and as a team, we can find all competences necessary for the project, but not to force people to do what they don't like. And that is difficult because very often people do not communicate it openly.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mazin.
So I think what the COVID-19 has shown us that there's a big enemy that we haven't thought of, burnout and mental health, an important jewel called mental health. So what I've asked, my advice is positivity, specifically using emotional intelligence, as Eva has mentioned, right? Empathy is an important skill set. So positivity is what I would advise, specifically as you think out of the box, right? The simplicity, the art of simplicity, is a very good guiding principle when you look at project management and project management office activities, and try to be positive, to always look at the other side, is something that I think would be very necessary, because this drives the learning hunger. People, you have to be quick in learning and unlearning, and that requires a lot of positivity, because now your skill set, you're skilling up every day, and this is what flexibility requires it in the new normal.
Awesome. Edita?
Yeah, I probably would like to come back to our original topic, sustainability. And I wish everyone to gain this future first mindset, because damage is done and we don't know what else we can expect in the future. So let's stay flexible and adopt the situation, but also don't forget that future is coming and what we can do now.
Danutė?
I still pick two, so I can't choose one, so sorry for that. Because whenever somebody is asking, so what is that project management about, what I need to learn, what kind of certificates I need to get, etc. So whenever having those conversations with those who think about being a project manager, and of course, with the full respect that you have quite a lot of knowledge in order to be able to apply, but for me, project management is about common sense working together for the same value. I mean, it's that simple, or this is the task to make it simple. Maybe the beauty that common sense is not so common for everyone. So maybe that's the beauty of being, common sense. And the second one is that you should not be loved in or addicted to the approach idea that you have proposed, because there is no one correct way of doing things. So this is where flexibility comes. This is where listening comes. Because current project management organizations or teams, there is no longer any hierarchy, project manager and the team. It's the pool of people with different competences working together. There is no any hierarchy, it's just collaboration. So there is no one superior. So we just have different set of skills that we need to combine in the best way what we like to do most. Even if in your daily job you have different function, you might do in the project what you're really passionate about. So this is for me, what drives me forward.
Thanks. And Dr. Birutė, to finalize it.
Yeah, I'm just was listening, because I do represent the training providers. Yes, we are providing with the program of preparing the project managers, and I think that the content and context for us, that's a very sensitive issue. Just to redesign the program and make the content, which is the actual one, and hands-on, because that's a very practical profession. So it is not enough just to read some PM book or something else. So it is sense and innovation, creativity, leadership. That's the set of the tools the project manager should have nowadays.
Very good. So as we're coming to close it, I would like to kind of maybe summarize today's discussion in a few key bullet points. So the first one, we found out that there's actually much more benefit in this connected world versus challenges, right? So a lot of us have talked about the benefits of being connected in this digital world. The second point is mostly that it's not mutually exclusive, that it doesn't necessarily mean that projects or structure is against chaos, even though at the first thought it might look like it, but those two can coexist and co-live. And when we talked about tools, there are many different tools, but I think the most important thing for everyone to understand is simplicity, and use it regardless of what people are offering you. Test it and use it what you think is the most simple one, because we also then make sure that others will be also much easier to onboard on those tools. And lastly, but not the least, about tips to people around project management and being successful is there are many different tips, and there's no one, as Danutė said, there's and your performance. So with that, I very much thank you all for connecting and being here with us. And Edita, your final remarks on the event, possibly.
Many thanks to you, Audrius, and all the panelists for, wow, such a fruitful discussion in the context of changing environment and going towards digital. So I hope that every one of us took at least some practical tips.